Hey guys, tonight we step into a world that rarely made it into history books. A world of steam, cloth, ash, and quiet determination. You're waking up in a medieval cottage, tucked beneath a linen blanket that smells faintly of smoke and wool. It's still dim outside. The hearth has gone cold. Your bedmate, possibly your sister, cousin, or even a visiting widow stirs beside you. You try not to wake her. The straw beneath the mattress crinkles as you slip your feet into worn woolen hose. The stones on the floor are freezing. No one talks about this part of medieval life. They speak of kings, crusades, or castles, but not of the small daily ritual you're about to perform. Washing your face with no soap, no sink, no mirror, just a bucket of cold well water and a worn rag. You kneel beside the basin, if your family's lucky enough to have one. If not, it's just a wooden pail tucked near the door. The water inside is from yesterday. It smells slightly of iron and dirt. You dip a cloth in, squeeze it out, and wipe your face with practiced motion. The cloth is coarse, linen reused too many times. Still, it works. Sometimes, if your family has connections to a local tanner or butcher, there might be a pinch of fat-based lye soap nearby. It's harsh and gritty. Too much will strip your skin raw. Instead, many women save cooled ash from the hearth. Ash mixed with water makes a mild alkali, gentler on skin than lye soap. You smear a fingertip's worth over your cheeks, then rinse with a quick splash of that icy water. There's no privacy, no bathroom door. If you're lucky, the men have gone to tend the animals, and the little ones are still snoring under the wool pile in the corner. But most mornings someone walks past you as you crouch over the bucket, and no one bats an eye. And don't expect a mirror to check your reflection. Those are rare, expensive, and usually made of polished metal that distorts your face like a funhouse. You rely on touch, fingers smoothing over skin to feel for grime or sleep crust near the eyes. You tie your hair back without seeing it. You hope yesterday's braid still holds. What about those days when you're ill or the water's frozen over in the bucket? Then your cloth gets dipped in a mug of ale or warm broth, or sometimes rubbed with a bit of vinegar if there's a whiff you want gone. Harsh? Yes, but effective. You won't believe this, but some well-to-do women even used old wine to wipe their face, especially in southern Europe. The acidity helped exfoliate, and the scent masked other less pleasant smells. Meanwhile, women in colder regions sometimes used melted snow, scooped hastily into their hands, numb fingers patting down tired eyes. All right, before you get too cozy, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe, but only if your heart says yes. And hey, while you're here, drop your local time and where you're listening from. I always love seeing where this little community is tuning in from. Dim the lights, get that fan going for some background vibes, and let's chill into tonight's little adventure. Now, back to your morning. You wrap the damp cloth back into the windowsill nook where it dries stiff by midday. You blink at the grey sky, tie a headband over your ears, and shiver in silence. The day hasn't even begun, but you've already done something brave. You've washed your face in a time and place that made even that small act an act of effort. And you haven't even touched your teeth yet. You stretch your jaw, rub your cheeks, and reach for a tiny pouch tied to your belt. It jingles slightly, not with coins, but with herbs and coarse powder. Your tooth dust. There are no toothbrushes in sight. Instead, you lift a finger, dip it into the powder, and begin to rub it along your teeth and gums. What's in the mix? Depends on what you could gather or barter. Most women use crushed sage, dried mint, and a pinch of salt. If you're lucky, there's powdered charcoal from last week's hearth fire. Some women even grind oyster shells or burnt bread crusts for extra grit, but your gums still ache from the last time you tried that. Your breath? Not great. But that's not the goal. You're after a mouth that doesn't fester. Infections are a quiet killer here. So you keep scrubbing. You spit into the straw at your feet and rinse with a swig of water, or ale if it's too cold to go back outside for more. And just like that, your face is washed, your teeth are scrubbed, and you haven't even left the room. This is the start of almost every day of your life. There's no fragrance of lavender soap, no foggy mirror with a light ring. The smell of the room is a mixture of wool, smoke, old wood, and, if someone was ill overnight, a faint acidic tang that settles into the corners. You grow used to it. You can even tell who's awake by the creaks in the floorboards or the rhythm of coughs. As you fold your cloth and tuck the tooth dust away, you spot your neighbour through the gap in the shuttered window. She's already outside, arms bare, scrubbing something at the well. Her face is red from cold and the cloth in her hand is steaming slightly. You wonder if her soap is better than yours. Some noble households, if they're rich enough, import soap from Castile or Venice, olive oil based, smooth, even fragrant. You've heard of it, maybe seen it once in the manor kitchen when you were delivering bread. But for you, soap is made at home, lye from ashes, mixed with leftover grease from the kitchen, boiled down into thick paste, poured into a wooden mould and left to cure in the pantry. It stings if you use it fresh. It burns if you get the ratio wrong. And still, it's better than nothing. The women in your family have passed these rituals down like secret recipes. Your mother taught you how to make ash paste that doesn't scorch your skin. Your grandmother once showed you how to brew a rosemary rinse, boiled until the water turned dark and sharp-smelling. You've used it not just on your skin, but on your underclothes, your bedding, even your boots. Some say women in the north rarely wash at all in winter. That's nonsense. You don't have the luxury of not washing. It may not be a bath in the modern sense, but cloth and water touch your skin every single day. Sometimes with soap, sometimes with herbs, sometimes with just heat from the fire and a handful of clean snow. And sometimes, when things are truly bad, you rub your hands with vinegar, say a quiet prayer, and press on. You glance back at the hearth. A wisp of smoke rises from the dying embers. You toss in a few twigs and wait for the warmth to return. There's a long day ahead. Washing clothes, tending to the animals, maybe even helping mend someone's infected foot if the herbalist is away. And through it all, you'll carry the scent of ash, cloth, and cold morning air. You've survived the first hour of your day, and in this world that's already something to be proud of. The hearth finally crackles to life, but there's no time to linger. You wrap your shawl tighter and head out into the chill. The ground is damp, the kind of wetness that seeps into the soles of your boots and doesn't leave until midsummer. You follow the muddy path to the yard where the water pail rests under a slanted wooden cover. You check for ice. Just a thin film today, easy enough to crack with a knuckle. This water is for more than your face. It's shared between your family for drinking, cooking and washing. And now, for your morning ablutions. The rules are simple. Face, hands, armpits if time allows. Everything else waits for bath day, if there is one. You scoop a little water into a chipped bowl and strip your outer layer down to your shift. Your breath clouds in front of your face. You've done this dance hundreds of times. Wet the cloth, scrub under your arms, down your neck, behind your ears, all in quick strokes. The water's cold enough to sting. You grit your teeth and keep moving. If you're lucky, no one's watching. But in truth, no one cares. Women bathe together in this world, not out of comfort, but necessity. Inside the cottage, others are rising. The sounds of coughing, fire poking, and early footsteps on wood mix with chickens clucking outside. It's not a quiet life. You've grown used to bathing in plain view, next to sisters, aunts, cousins. Modesty isn't about hiding. It's about knowing when not to look too closely. You dry off with a woolen scrap and hang the cloth on a hook to dry, stiff and scratchy by noon. There's no towel as you'd recognise it. Just repurposed linen rags, once part of a tunic, now serving a humbler role. Still, they do their job. As you shift your weight to one leg and rub your arms for warmth, you glance at your fingernails. Dirt's already gathered there from kindling the fire and helping the chickens. You could scrape it out with a bone pick if you had time, but you probably won't. Nails are practical things here. No one expects them to gleam. By the door, someone's laid out the washing pot, the one reserved for warming water when someone is ill. It's been cleaned with soapwort and vinegar, and the faint scent makes your eyes water. You'll use it later to wash your shift if the weather holds, but only if. Now, it's time for the most intimate part of the routine, tending to your underthings. or rather their absence. In much of medieval Europe, most women didn't wear underwear as we know it. There might be a shift, a chemise, maybe an extra layer of wool in winter, but no drawers, no bloomers, no lace-trimmed nothings. Those wouldn't come for centuries. What you have is practical. A long linen shift that acts as the barrier between your skin and the heavy woolen gown. It absorbs sweat, catches body oils, and, if you're unlucky, lice. The shift is your first and last line of hygiene, and it rarely gets washed more than once a week, if that. Still, today you check it carefully. You sniff the underarms, press your fingers against the hem. It's manageable. You rub a little dried thyme into the seams. It helps more than you'd think. It's easy to forget how much labour goes into staying clean when water is a luxury and soap is a project. And yet, you do it. Because no matter your station, maid, mother, midwife, you carry yourself through each morning ritual with quiet pride. Because even in the chill and muck and noise, you believe in starting the day fresh. You pull your shift down over your hips and reach for your overdress. The fabric is thick wool, coarse, faded in parts, and heavy with dampness from the week's fog. It doesn't smell fresh exactly, but it doesn't smell foul either. That's what counts. You tug it over your head with a practiced motion, wincing slightly as it pulls at the braid you never quite finished retying. Lacing the front takes time. If you had a sister or daughter nearby, she'd help you, tightening the cord so the fabric hugs your torso. Alone, you make do, fingers fumbling, breath puffing. This dress has been repaired half a dozen times, patches under the arms and a tear near the hem where it caught on a loose nail last winter. But it still serves, and that's enough. You pause to tuck a sachet into your bodice, just a scrap of linen filled with dried lavender and rosemary. Not perfume, just insurance. In crowded markets or long walks to the abbey, it helps mask the sour scent of sweat. Everyone carries something like it. A cloth tied to a belt, a pouch of herbs sewn into a sleeve. It's one of those unspoken parts of being a woman. Back inside, your youngest cousin has taken your place at the water pail. She's barely 12, still learning to hold her cloth without spilling half the bucket. You don't scold her. You just nod, and she grins through chattering teeth. She's wearing her older sister's shift, sleeves too long, dragging through the mud. Your aunt mutters something about heating stones to warm water for the baby. You glance at the hearth. There's barely enough wood for cooking, let alone washing, so someone will go out back to gather branches, stepping around the muck and geese. The baby will get her warm rinse, eventually. Washing in this world isn't separate from life. It's threaded into every other task. Cleaning your face happens while the stew simmers, scrubbing a shift. While you wait for the bread to rise, there are no self-care days, only stolen moments of quiet cloth and breath. A neighbour arrives with a pot of broth. Her husband's fever broke last night, and she's brought the leftovers. She smells of wood smoke and tallow, and her hands are stained from peeling bark to make infusions. You offer her your stool and let her warm herself. She pulls back her hood, revealing a headscarf so stiff with salt it could stand on its own. She hasn't had time to rinse it since autumn. She laughs when you ask about her soap supply. "Gone," she says. "Used the last scrap last week on my husband's socks. Had to pick between him or the linens." You both nod solemnly. Some decisions aren't really choices. There's a quiet pride in the sharing of these struggles. The cloth you washed with rainwater. The mint you dried above the hearth for mouth rinse. The time you burned your fingers boiling soap and didn't say a word. Every woman here carries 100 little secrets of survival. You rise and take your bowl back to the door. A rooster calls out. The sun finally peeks over the roofline, casting soft gold on the muddy yard. It's barely morning, but you've already done the invisible labour of 3 people, and not a soul will write your name in a book for it. Still, you breathe in deeply, letting the cold air fill your lungs. Your shift clings to your skin, still damp from the cloth, but you're clean enough for this world. Clean in the way your grandmother taught you. Clean in the way that matters. Your fingers finally find the comb tucked into your apron string. a small rectangle of bone, worn smooth, its teeth slightly crooked from years of use. It's not just for grooming, it's for ritual. You've watched women older than you run combs through their hair every morning as if it were prayer, and in some ways it is. You slip back inside to the hearth's glow and settle on the stool, tug the linen coif from your head and shake loose the braid beneath. Your hair is thick, dark, and unwashed. Not dirty necessarily, just untouched by soap and water for weeks. In this world, hair is rarely washed in the modern sense. It is combed, brushed with cloth, and scented with herbs. Some women rub in powders made from ground flowers or chalk to absorb oil. Others braid it tightly and leave it alone. You begin to comb slowly from tip to root, starting at the very ends where the tangles live. It snags more than once. You wince and keep going. There's no rush. This part of the morning always takes time. Hair tells more truth than words ever could. Clean clothes mean little if your hair is matted. A neat braid signals care, presence of mind, even virtue. Loose wild hair is for morning madness, or girls too young to be watched closely. A woman with flowing hair walking through the village at midday, people will whisper. So you part your hair in the centre and begin to braid it, tight and even. You've done this thousands of times. The movements feel older than you are. Maybe they are. Maybe they belong to all the women before you who sat beside similar hearths, hearing similar chickens, tying similar knots. When the braid is done, you wind it into a coil at the back of your head and pin it with a wooden needle. Then comes the coif. The linen square fits snug over your head, tied at the nape. It smells faintly of thyme. You placed a sprig under the storage chest weeks ago, and the scent has soaked in. You think briefly of noble women in stone manors who wear netted caps sewn with pearls. You've seen them once, maybe twice on festival days, but their hair is also braided, hidden, managed. Whether castle or cottage, hair is meant to be contained. You glance toward the door. Your cousin stumbles in, holding a handful of dried flowers in one hand and her half-unravelled braid in the other. She plops beside you, tugging clumsily at the strands. You help her, untangling the mess, weaving it back into place. Her scalp is dry, so you rub a little goose fat between your fingers and smooth it along the part. She wrinkles her nose but says nothing. She knows it works. This moment, the soft braid, the shared touch, the scent of ash and dried thyme, is one you'll remember later, when her hair is grey and yours is thinner. You'll remember the way she leaned against your knee and let you braid her quiet again. Outside, the wind has picked up. You hear it rattle the shutters. Somewhere in the thatch above, a squirrel scrambles. But in this small moment, you're grounded. Your hair is braided, your coif is tied, your role in the world is sealed for another day. And for now, that's enough. You run your hand once more along your braid, smoothing down the stray wisps that always escape no matter how tight the plait. The coif fits snug now, and with it, your sense of composure. Covered hair means readiness, dignity, a quiet sort of armour. There's a second layer to add, your veil. A simple piece of bleached linen, thin and slightly translucent, draped over the coif and pinned beneath your chin. Some days you secure it with a plain metal brooch. Today it's just a knotted bit of string. The veil falls just past your shoulders, brushing the woolen fabric of your gown. In your community, no respectable woman walks outside without her head covered, especially if she's married. Hair is not for public viewing. Even among friends, you keep it bound. Only in the most intimate corners of life, at birth, at death, or at the hearth, does it come undone. There's comfort in the ritual. Even on days when your body aches, or the world feels too loud, the act of tying that last knot gives you control. You check your reflection, not in a mirror, but in the polished underside of a brass cooking pan. A poor substitute, yes, but enough to see if anything's wildly off. Your veil looks lopsided. You tug it once, pin again, then leave it be. Good enough. The tradition of hair wrapping goes deeper than etiquette. It serves a practical purpose too. The layers protect your hair from soot, lice, and the constant smoke that settles in every rafter. They also absorb oils, keeping your scalp from matting in the long weeks between herbal rinses. Some women even sew a sprig of lavender into the hem of the coif to keep their scalp fresh. You did once. Now you just rub rosemary between your palms and press it to your temples. The scent clings faintly, sharp and earthy. Your younger cousin is still sitting at the hearth, her veil crooked and her coif slipping. You help her fix it, tucking stray bits under the linen. She's just begun her womanhood, and with it comes the weight of covering, of presentation. She fidgets under your hands but doesn't protest. Outside, you hear the clanging of the market bell. Time to go. You pull on your outer cloak, pin the brooch at your collar, and adjust the veil so it doesn't flap in the wind. As you step out, you pass other women in similar dress, each with her hair hidden, veils fluttering, shoulders hunched against the cold. You nod at them, and they nod back. Silent recognition. Sisterhood built not from words, but from shared fabric and shared labour. In the distance, a group of unmarried girls chase each other near the well, their veils bouncing, braids poking through. One has let her hair loose entirely, and an older woman nearby gives a sharp tsk and mutters something about decency. The girl quickly grabs for her coif, cheeks flushed. A small lesson learned. Even for noble women, the expectations are similar. Their veils are finer, their pins jewelled, their coifs embroidered, but still the message is the same. Concealed hair is respectable hair. Only a few people in your lifetime will ever see you with your hair uncovered and unbound. Your mother, your closest sister, perhaps your husband if you marry, and one day your daughter. But today, no one sees it. And that's just how it should be. You return from the market with a basket of eggs. Your feet sore from the uneven stones and your arms stiff from holding the bundle tight against your body. You duck back inside and immediately loosen your cloak. The warmth of the hearth greets you again, though the air still carries that faint musk of wool, smoke, and bodies long unwashed. Now comes the quiet part of the day, where, for a moment, the labour slows and you can tend to yourself. You slip behind the fabric partition that separates the sleeping corner from the rest of the house. It's not much, just a curtain made from old bedding patched with wool scraps. But it gives you a sliver of privacy, and today that feels like luxury. You reach beneath your outer gown and begin to undo the knots. The wool is heavy with damp and you peel it off slowly, revealing the long linen shift underneath, your most intimate garment, the layer closest to your skin. It's the same one you wore yesterday and probably the day before, maybe even longer. You check the underarms and neckline. The linen is yellowing, a sign of age and honest wear. You bring the fabric to your nose. It smells faintly of your own skin, of the herbs you rubbed into it this morning, and of the smoke that settles into every fibre of your life. Still wearable, just barely. The medieval woman's undergarment is never spoken of in polite company, but every woman has one, or at least every woman who can afford linen. For some, a rough wool shift will have to do, though it itches terribly and rubs raw in the heat. Yours is linen, patched at the hem and shoulders, a hand-me-down from your mother's mother. Underwear in the modern sense, drawers, panties, lace, is centuries away. In this world, the shift serves all purposes. It's nightgown, underlayer, towel, and sometimes even bandage. If you bleed, it catches it. If you sweat, it soaks it. If you give birth, it's the cloth wrapped around your knees and hips as life enters the world. Today, you're lucky enough to own 2 shifts. You rotate them when possible, washing one while wearing the other. But that depends on weather, firewood, and whether the well isn't frozen solid. Most days you make do with just wiping the fabric down, spot cleaning stains with salt or ashes, and hoping the herbal rinse musks the rest. You sit, shift pulled around your knees and begin to inspect the seams. One thread near the neckline has come undone. You reach for your sewing pouch, just a sliver of beeswax, a dull needle, and a few loops of thread salvaged from worn-out tunics. You begin to stitch with calm hands. You've done this more times than you can count. As you work, your thoughts drift to the stories older women tell, how shifts were once considered so private that only mothers and daughters ever touched them, how some girls embroidered tiny initials on the inside hem so that if stolen at the wash house they could be claimed again. You once saw a noblewoman's shift, bright white, impossibly thin, with lace edging at the collar. It had never known a day's labour. You felt no envy, only disbelief. How could something so fragile survive even a week in this world? You tie off the final stitch and hold the garment up to the light. It's not new, not perfect, but it's whole, and for now, that's enough. You smooth it over your thighs and exhale. The sun has begun to dip, and with it the cold is creeping back through the stone. Your shift will carry you through the night once more. You run your fingers along the edge of your shift, feeling the softened weave where the fabric has thinned over time. The linen used to be coarse and scratchy, but now it folds like buttered paper, worn smooth by countless washes and the heat of your body. Each patch, each faint stain tells a story, not one you'd say aloud, but one your hands remember. Tonight you'll sleep in this same shift just as you did last night. There's no such thing as changing into special nightwear. You simply remove your outer gown and crawl beneath the blankets, shift and all, hoping the fire doesn't die before morning. But before that, you decide to freshen it just a little. You lean toward the hearth, where a small iron pot simmers with rosemary, yarrow and the last of last year's lavender. The scent rises up, woody, slightly bitter, but cleaner than anything else in the cottage. You dip a clean scrap of linen into the brew, wring it tight, and press it under your arms, around your neck, and between your thighs. Not a bath, but enough to feel new. The herbal rinse is your secret weapon. You learned it from your aunt, who learned it from hers, all the way back to someone no one can quite name. Some women add vinegar, others a drop of honey if it can be spared. The smell alone is comforting, but it also helps ward off lice and the small infections that creep in when fabric rubs too long against skin. You fold the cloth and set it to dry near the hearth. Then, reaching into your wooden chest, you pull out the second shift, the one you haven't worn in 4 days. It's still damp from yesterday's wash, stiff at the seams and icy to the touch. You shake your head. No good. You'll wear this one again tonight and try to dry the other fully tomorrow. There's a quiet understanding among women here. The body does what it must. Clean isn't perfect. Clean is manageable. Clean is dry when possible, warm when lucky, and never too much to draw attention. Smelling too nice too often raises eyebrows just as much as smelling unwashed. Balance is everything. You layer your gown back on, feeling the weight settle on your shoulders. Your shift clings to your ribs, still damp in spots from the herbal cloth. It's not pleasant, but it's familiar. Like the prick of straw in the mattress or the creak of wood in the rafters, it's part of the rhythm of daily life. Tomorrow, if the wind calms and the sun breaks through, you'll wash the shift in the stream. It's not an easy job, beating it against flat stones, scrubbing with ashes, rinsing in water that turns your hands purple. But there's something satisfying in it. To see the cloth brighten, to feel the grit give way, to pin it on the line and watch it dance like a ghost above the garden. Until then, it stays with you. So close it's like skin. And perhaps that's the truth of it. This humble garment, so plain and overlooked, is more intimate than anything else you own. It cradles you through labour, sleep, blood and prayer. And when it's finally too worn to repair, it becomes a rag, a bandage, or kindling for the first fire of spring. But not yet. Not tonight. You run your hands down your sides one last time, smoothing the linen. Then you step through the curtain into the buzz of evening chores, once more clothed in the quiet dignity of the unseen. The days pass and your shift grows heavier. Not with dirt exactly, but with the subtle weight of repetition. Of skin and time and the quiet burden that visits every woman sooner or later. You feel the change before you see it. A dull ache low in your belly. The sense that your body's about to remind you, once again, of its strange rhythm. You know what's coming. You tuck your chores into the early part of the day, stir the porridge, feed the chickens, patch the firewood basket, but by late afternoon you excuse yourself behind the partition with your sewing pouch and a scrap of folded linen. It's time to prepare. Again. There are no shops here, no packets, no wrappers, no sterile cotton products. Just cloth, washed, folded, and folded again. Your moon cloth, stiff with age though softened from repeated use. It's not much to look at. A strip of absorbent linen folded twice into a thicker square, bound by two smaller ties at either end. You fasten it to a loop you've sewn into the inner part of your shift, right where it matters most. Sometimes, if there's enough fabric to spare, women make several, but linen is costly. Most make do with one or two, washing and drying them quickly between uses. If you're caught short on a wet day or an unexpected cycle, there are only poor substitutes, wool scraps, moss, or even handfuls of hay wrapped in cloth. You've tried them all. None work as well as the real thing. The first time your cousin bled, she ran outside crying, thought she'd been wounded. You sat her down by the hearth, handed her your clean cloth, and told her what your aunt once told you. It comes like the moon, without asking, without fail, and we carry it quietly. You carry it now. The cramps tighten just as you begin to heat water. You toss in a handful of chamomile if you have it. If not, mint or mugwort, anything bitter and calming. You press the warm mug to your belly and sit still until the worst of the ache passes. There's no word for this part. No one complains. You still have chores to finish. Your cloth needs to be changed every few hours. If you're home, that's easy enough. You rinse it in the back basin, squeeze it dry, and hang it in the sun if it shows its face. If you're in the fields, you carry an extra hidden beneath your apron. And if you're at church, well, you pray it holds. There's no shame in this, but there's secrecy. The line is fine. You do not speak of bleeding openly. You do not display cloths in public view. But among women, there's understanding. A shared glance when someone shifts uncomfortably on a wooden bench. A quiet offering of herbs for pain. A palm laid gently on the small of your back. Tonight, you'll sleep in a thicker cloth, secured tightly, lined with wool if needed. If it leaks, you'll rinse your shift before anyone wakes. No one will know. No one needs to. And if it gets bad, really bad, if the pain tightens your whole body into a knot, you'll press a hot brick to your belly, wrapped in a layer of wool, and breathe slowly until the pain unravels. It usually does. Eventually. Night falls, and you lie stiff under the woolen blankets, knees drawn up slightly, hands pressed against your stomach as though you might coax the pain away. The shift clings damply to your back. Somewhere near your ribs the herbal compress has begun to cool, its once soothing warmth now just a heavy stone against your skin. You've wrapped the linen cloth tighter tonight, added a second layer folded in half. There's always the fear of stains, of leaks, of someone noticing. It's not that anyone would shame you, not outright, but whispers carry in small places, and no one wants to be known for soiled bedding. At the edge of the hearth, a bundle of rinsed cloths hangs over the iron bar. You washed them earlier with ash soap and boiling water, scrubbing them against a flat board until your knuckles cracked. They'll dry slowly overnight, and tomorrow you'll rub them with rosemary and vinegar to kill what your hands couldn't. There are moments when you wonder what women did before cloth, before linen became cheap enough for the poor to own. Your grandmother said moss, wool, even paper if it could be spared. One village elder claimed her mother used rolled-up scraps from old liturgical books, pages already faded beyond reading. That always made you wonder what holy words ended up tucked in someone's waistband. You shift uncomfortably. The cramps have dulled to a hum now, tolerable but insistent. You reach for the warmed brick again, though it barely holds heat. You'd add another log to the fire if you could afford to waste one. The night stretches long. Every movement becomes a calculation. How to lie without pressure, how to fold your limbs so the cloth stays in place, how to rise silently if the need comes. The sleep you find is shallow, always on the edge of waking, always listening for the soft betrayal of a leak. By morning you're sore and tired, but clean, or clean enough. You rinse the cloth again in the half-frozen water, your fingers red and stiff. A part of you hopes no one enters the back garden while you're there, hunched over the basin. But if they do, they'll know what you're doing, and they'll turn away, politely pretending not to. There's something both lonely and powerful in that silence. Back inside, you slip into your shift again, layering the clean cloth into place. It's not perfect, still damp at the edges, but it will do. You tie your apron, run a hand over your veil, and step out to begin another day. No one asks why your gait is slower, why you wince when you bend to lift the kettle. But the older women notice. One quietly sets a mug of mint tea in front of you without a word. Another hands you her own bundle of mooncloths, better sewn, better lined, and simply says, "Spare." You take them. You thank her. You tuck them away. Because here, in this little world, pain is expected, endured, and passed between hands like bread. There is no applause for managing it, no comfort beyond what other women offer in the quiet. And still, you carry on. You carry it all. Blood, cloth, heat, silence, and move through your day as though it were nothing. Because for centuries women always have. The pain has faded by midday, replaced with the familiar weight of fatigue behind your eyes. Still, the world doesn't stop, and neither do you. Your cousin is setting out bread to rise, your aunt is scraping soot from the base of the hearth, and the dog has already dragged yesterday's kindling back into the mud. You sigh, wipe your hands, and begin preparing your mid-morning task, mouth care. You grab your little pouch from the corner shelf, a scrap of soft leather, stained and cracked. Inside is your precious blend of tooth dust, hand ground the week prior from crushed salt, dried sage, and a touch of mint if you could find any. You've also added powdered charcoal from last night's fire. The coarser the powder, the better it scrapes. Too fine, and it simply sits on your tongue like sand. There's no brush to speak of, no bristles. You use your index finger, first dipping it in water, then into the powder. You rub it along your teeth with practiced pressure, careful to reach the molars where bits of barley bread tend to stick. It doesn't foam, doesn't shine, doesn't taste like anything you'd want to keep in your mouth, but it works. You scrape the grit free, spit to the side, and rinse with cool water from a jug. The smell in your mouth isn't floral, it's something sharper, cleaner, like sage crushed underfoot in the sun. That's enough. No one expects perfume, just absence of rot. If your family's particularly careful, there might be a little twig of birch nearby, its end chewed to a frayed point, used like a brush. You've seen them in larger households, and once even tried carving your own, though it splintered too easily. Some women prefer the soft ash ends of burned sticks, smoothed and cooled. You, though, rely on cloth and finger, and a good rinse afterward. You pass your tongue over your teeth. They feel rough still, but not sticky. You run a fingertip along your gum line, checking for soreness. One molar in the back gives a dull throb. That one's been brewing trouble for months. You press it gently. No bleeding, not today. Toothaches aren't something to joke about. You've seen women lose sleep, sanity, even their lives over infections that began as small aches. There's no dentist to visit, no sweet-smelling antiseptic, just wine-soaked cloths to numb the pain and prayers to keep it from swelling further. A neighbour once tried to dig out a rotten tooth with a bone needle. You heard her screams through the shuttered window. In the end, the village healer packed her mouth with yarrow and poppy and let her drift into a stupor before yanking it free. It never healed properly, but she lived. That story stays with you every time your tooth throbs. You chew only on the left side now, breaking bread with care, softening dried fruit in warm water before biting. You chew mint leaves when you can. Some women say it freshens the breath. Others just like the bitterness. It distracts from the ache. And as for your breath, no one expects roses, but you still try. You brew a weak rinse from vinegar and cloves, swirling it twice and spitting behind the cottage. It stings your gums, but clears the taste of boiled turnip from breakfast. You press your lips together, nod once, and tuck your pouch of tooth dust back into your apron. Another little task, another small defence against the creeping chaos of decay. You step outside into the midday air, your mouth still tingling faintly from the vinegar rinse. The sun is higher now, casting pale light over the garden path and the low stone wall where herbs dry in bunches from last week's harvest. You walk slowly toward the edge of the plot, where your aunt keeps the stronger plants, ones not meant for stews or teas, but for chewing, crushing and rinsing away illness. There, among the tangle of stalks and late autumn weeds, grows your favourite, tansy. Bitter-sweet, sharp, and deeply green. It isn't pleasant to eat, but you pluck a leaf anyway and press it between your molars. Not to chew, just to let the oils work their way into your mouth. Beside it, the sage is stiff with dew. A little farther there's parsley, wood betony, and the last of the fennel. These aren't food, they're your allies. You gather a few sprigs and wrap them in a scrap of cloth. This bundle will last you the week. One to crush and press against your gums if the ache returns. Another to hang near your bed for scent. One more to brew into a tea if you feel a fever behind your eyes. You remember your mother standing just here, years ago, chewing on a sliver of horseradish root while she sewed. Said it kept her mouth strong. You've never had the nerve to try it. It burned her eyes so badly she wept for half an hour. Still, the women swear by their remedies. Some keep clove buds hidden in the hems of their sleeves. Others rub crushed sage on their wrists, letting the scent follow them through the day. One midwife, half blind and always muttering, made a habit of breathing into a cloth soaked in vinegar and bay leaf every morning before tending to births. She claimed it kept her free of mouth rot. You pass a few of these bundles on your way back to the cottage. One you tuck into the firewood pile to dry. Another you leave hanging near the door where others can borrow. That's how it works. Quiet exchanges. No announcements. When you enter the cottage again, your cousin is leaning near the hearth, pressing her cheek with the heel of her palm. She doesn't say a word, but you know the look. You fetch the poppy head tincture and a twist of cloth. Wet the cloth with vinegar and a few drops of oil. Hand it to her and nod. She presses it to her jaw in silence. Her eyes close, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. Toothaches unite all women here, young and old, noble and peasant. You once heard that in far-off towns. Some wealthy women coat their teeth in resin to keep them white, or scrub them with powdered pearl and honey, which makes them gleam but rots them faster. You wouldn't trade places, not if it meant that kind of pain. You reach for your own cup of warm water and swirl it once more out of habit than need. The bitterness from the sage leaf still clings to your gums. It's not sweet, but it's clean. Later tonight, before bed, you'll rub your gums with a mixture of salt and sage oil, if there's any left. You'll press the same worn cloth against your cheek and listen to the fire crackle, hoping sleep comes easily. And if the ache returns, well, you'll bear it, like the others do, with herbs, cloth, and quiet strength. Because in this world, even a single tooth can change everything. The garden is quiet in the early light, except for the soft rustle of your skirts brushing past tall stalks and drying leaves. You move with purpose, basket in hand, stepping between worn stones and patches of dark soil. This isn't a kitchen garden. This is your pharmacy, passed down through hands older than you can name. Your fingers brush along the rosemary first. Its needle-like leaves release a sharp, bracing scent as you pluck a few sprigs. It's one of your favourites, not just for seasoning, but for its many secret uses. You crush a bit between your palms and rub it along the edge of your neck. The oil will linger through the day, cutting through sweat and smoke. A kind of personal shield. Next comes sage. Soft, grey-green, almost furry to the touch. Women here call it the clean leaf. You steep it into tea for sore throats, chew it for bad breath, and crush it into rinses to freshen the skin. In summer, you even rub the leaves directly under your arms, letting the oils mask what the lack of bathing cannot. You crouch down near the fennel, its feathery fronds dancing in the breeze. The seeds are drying now, brown, fragrant, slightly sweet. Chewed after meals, they settle the stomach and, more importantly, freshen the mouth. You slip a few into a small pouch at your waist, a hidden gift to yourself later. At the back of the plot there's a tangle of marigold, bright petals still clinging on despite the cold. You clip a few blooms carefully. Marigold in water makes a wash for your face. Some women say it keeps the skin from breaking in winter. Others say it's just a cheerful colour. Either way, you've grown used to its presence, like a small sun blooming beneath your window. Further still lies the yarrow, bitter, sturdy, white-blossomed. You don't need it today, but you keep an eye on it. It's for wounds, or for afterbirth. It stops bleeding. You've seen it pressed into cloth and bandaged around thighs and bellies when things went wrong. Its power is quiet, but dependable. You move carefully along the edge of the stone wall where a few last sprigs of lavender remain dried and brittle. You run your hands along them anyway. The scent brings memories of your mother laying linen to dry in the sun, tossing lavender between the folds. Of your aunt soaking her feet with lavender and vinegar after walking 5 miles for wool. And just beyond that wall, beyond the hedge of nettles, is the patch of mugwort. Some women fear it, call it the witch's plant, but others know it's useful, especially for pain and moon cycles. You've used it sparingly, just enough to take the edge off a cramp when you couldn't walk straight. Everything here has a purpose, a name, a season. You pause, listening to the wind rustle through stalks. No humming markets, no shouting vendors, just the whisper of leaves and the promise of medicine made with your own hands. This is your space, your sanctuary. In a world that rarely allows women ownership of anything, this garden is yours. Not because you bought it, but because you know it. Every root, every remedy, every time you crushed rosemary into your shift or chewed fennel on a hard walk, it reminded you, survival isn't loud. It grows slowly, silently, leaf by leaf. You gather the herbs into your basket, gently layering rosemary over sage, tucking lavender beneath the marigold to keep the petals from bruising. Each plant has its place, not just in the basket, but in your daily rhythms. There's comfort in knowing what to reach for, even if the world beyond the hedge doesn't understand your quiet system. Back inside, the cottage hums with activity. Your aunt is at the spinning wheel, foot tapping gently, wool trailing through her fingers. Your cousin is cleaning fish near the doorway, her hands pink with cold, eyes half closed against the morning light. You place your basket on the table and begin sorting, separating what will be dried from what must be used today. You set a pot on the hearth and fill it with water. Into it goes a handful of sage and a few fennel seeds. This will be today's rinse, for hands, face, underarms, even feet if time allows. The scent begins to fill the room, earthy and bitter, a sign that something is being cared for. You ladle a bit of the warm liquid into a bowl and carry it to your sleeping corner. There, behind the linen curtain, you peel off your outer garments once more and dip a cloth into the bowl. It's not a bath, but it's a ritual. You dab beneath your arms, behind your ears, down the insides of your thighs. The steam curls upward as you move, and the herbs leave a faint sheen on your skin. You've done this hundreds of times. After childbirth, before weddings, after funerals, on festival days and in times of illness. The rinse cleanses, yes, but it also centers. It tells your body you're tended to, even if no one else notices. Your cousin peeks through the curtain with an empty mug. "For the tea?" she asks. You nod, hand her the sage and fennel bundle and watch her disappear. She's learning slowly. You'll teach her to blend mugwort with elderflower next spring. For cramping, for fevers, for when the world gets too loud. Later you tie the herbs into small bundles and hang them from the rafters to dry. They sway gently above your head as you move about your chores. When you pass beneath them, you catch their scent. Hope, protection, memory. These aren't just plants. They're spells of a different kind. Not magic, but care woven into the daily fabric of survival. You think of other women in other cottages doing the same, drying rosemary to press between bed linens, boiling sage for rinses, stuffing lavender into sleeves, not for beauty, but for resilience. each gesture a quiet declaration. I am here. I tend this body. I hold this knowledge. Some say women are fragile, but they don't know the strength it takes to learn the plants that soothe a fever, to brew the rinse that keeps infection at bay, to gather marigold in the freezing rain because someone's childbirth bled longer than it should. Your basket is empty now, but your rafters are full. The house smells of steam and sharp green, and your skin hums faintly with the memory of warmth. You light a small candle near the drying rack, not for prayer, just for light, just for the small pleasure of watching the flame dance beneath the hanging herbs, casting shadows of leaves across the ceiling. The day's warmth fades quickly, and with it comes a different kind of stillness. Not the cosy hush of the herb drying corner, but something more uncertain. It's bath day, or at least it's meant to be. The water's been drawn, the fire stoked, the copper cauldron set carefully onto the stones. And yet, you hesitate. Bathing, in this world, is no simple task. It's not daily, not even weekly, for most. Full-body baths are rare, reserved for special occasions, illness, or the build-up of too many small discomforts. And there's always the lingering question, is it safe? You've heard the stories of women who caught fevers after a bath, of skin gone raw, lungs tight with chill. The bathhouse in town has a reputation, half healing, half scandal. They say noblemen visit not just to soak, but to watch, and women who bathe too long, too often, whispers follow them. But here, in your own home, with your own fire and your own water, it feels more like necessity than luxury. You place your hand above the steam rising from the tub, really just a large wooden barrel, patched in places with resin. The heat curls over your fingers, not scalding, just enough. You glance toward the door, bolted. Good. With quiet precision, you peel off your layers, shift, gown, and coif in a neat pile near the stool. Your skin prickles with air and anticipation. The first step in is always the hardest. Foot lowered into hot water, breath caught sharp in your throat, then the slow sinking until your knees bend and your body disappears beneath the surface. The tub is cramped. You can't stretch your legs, and the water only covers your waist when you hunch forward. But the heat is steady, seeping into your joints, unravelling the tight knots behind your shoulders and in your lower back. You reach for the cloth you've soaked in rosemary and thyme, and begin to wipe gently, neck, arms, breasts, belly, thighs. There is no lather, no clouds of floral foam, just the earthy scent of herbs, the scrape of linen, and the faint creak of the tub beneath your shifting weight. This is not an indulgence, it is work. You scrub the bottoms of your feet, checking for cracks. Rub under your arms where the shift has rubbed sore. Feel along the edge of your scalp, pressing out old oil and the memory of days past. You don't linger. A bath is best done quickly. Get clean before the water cools. Still, you allow yourself a moment. Just one. Leaning back against the curve of the tub, you close your eyes. Steam clings to your cheeks. You let your arms float briefly. You breathe. It's not joy exactly, but something close. Behind the curtain, you hear the shuffle of feet. A knock on the wall. Almost done? Someone calls softly. You nod, though they can't see you. Your time is almost up. You reach for the bucket beside the tub and pour warm water over your shoulders. Once, twice. The rinse leaves you shivering, but fresh. You step out carefully, gripping the edge with both hands, mindful of the slick wood. There's no towel, just an old sheet warmed near the hearth. You wrap yourself tightly, skin tingling, gooseflesh rising along your arms. Clean. Not in the way the world might define it, but clean enough to feel new. Steam still swirls around your ankles as you pad across the floor, wrapped in the sheet that clings to your damp skin. The chill of the cottage creeps in now that you've left the heat of the water behind. The fire burns low. Your breath curls in little clouds as you crouch beside it, feeding it 2 slivers of wood. One for warmth, one for drying your limbs before the air cools your bones. Bathing doesn't end when you step from the tub. The aftercare is just as precise. You sit close to the hearth and begin to rub your arms down with a cloth, one side coarse for scrubbing, the other softened from years of washing. You move slowly, starting from the shoulders and working down. Your skin is flushed pink, but not raw. You've learned the balance. Once you're mostly dry, you reach for the oil. Just a thimbleful, saved for this purpose, pressed from walnut or rendered from goose fat when the season allows. It smells faintly nutty, with a trace of rosemary. You rub it into your elbows, over your knees and around your heels. These are the parts that crack first in the cold. A little care now might save you from worse later. You hear your cousin's voice from the next room. "Don't forget the comb," she calls. You smile faintly and do as told. Your hair is loose now, heavy and damp, curling in odd directions from the steam. You take the comb, tug it gently through from tip to root. Bits of rosemary fall to the floor as you go. There's satisfaction in the small tug of the comb, the soft snaps of tangled strands giving way. You work carefully. Hair breaks easily when wet. Once smooth, you braid it loosely. Not the tight coil of your working days, but something softer, meant only for sleep. Then you wrap it in a linen cloth to keep it from knotting overnight. Now dressed again in your shift and clean underlayer, you feel the slight but unmistakable difference. Your body hums with the memory of heat, the tingle of skin newly scrubbed, the soft trace of oil across your shins. It's not glamour, it's not scented powders or painted nails, but it is peace. And yet, as much as bathing refreshes the body, it also marks you. The faint scent of herbs, the oil on your skin, the lingering warmth, others will notice. Your sisters may ask when you bathed, how you found the time. Some may laugh, others may narrow their eyes. There's always the shadow of suspicion when a woman makes herself too clean too often, as though cleanliness were a kind of vanity, as though the body once tended becomes a declaration of desire or defiance. That's why you stay quiet. You don't announce your bath. You just move through the room with slightly straighter posture. You touch your face without feeling grit beneath your nails. You slide into bed without shivering from the weight of your own sweat. Outside, frost is creeping along the window ledge. The fire pops once, and your cousin curls into the blanket beside you, her hair still slightly damp, her feet cold against yours. Neither of you speaks. The room is still, the air thick with wood smoke, rosemary and sleep, and beneath it all, your body hums with a secret knowledge of being clean. Not in the way men notice, but in the way only another woman would understand. You breathe deeply, and let the warmth hold you. The morning after a bath feels different. Your shift glides more smoothly over your skin. Your braid lies flatter. Even the hearth smoke seems less intrusive when it settles against clean flesh. But that doesn't mean you're finished. Water, you've learned, isn't always necessary to stay clean. In fact, some women go weeks without immersing themselves fully, especially in winter. The risk of catching cold, of damp settling into the lungs or joints, is too great. So, instead of reaching for the water bucket, you reach for the oil. Your aunt taught you how to make it, slowly heating goose fat with sprigs of lavender and rosemary until the herbs darken and release their scent. Then you strain it through linen, cool it, and store it in a beeswax-sealed jar near the hearth. It smells faintly of smoke and earth, but it works like nothing else. You dip your fingers in and begin the ritual. First your hands, wrists, knuckles, dry patches between your fingers. Then your arms, rubbing in small circles from elbow to shoulder. Next comes your neck, the hollow just below your collarbone, and the skin behind your ears where cold wind likes to bite. This isn't a luxury, it's protection. The oil keeps your skin from cracking, especially when the air outside steals every drop of moisture. It helps seal in heat when the fire can't reach. And more than once, it has soothed a chapped heel or a rash from too much time in wet stockings. Some women use olive oil, especially in the southern parts of the world. But here, in your village, that's a rare treasure. You've only smelled it once. Fruity, golden, almost sweet. The merchant who carried it wrapped the bottle in wool and straw, as though protecting a relic. You couldn't afford even a drop, so you stick to what's local. Walnut oil, when the harvest is good. Goose fat, almost always. Sometimes lard mixed with dried herbs. And though it sounds strange, some women add ash, yes, ash, to the mixture, especially when they need it to double as a cleanser. Ash and fat, the very roots of soap. You reach for the cloth you keep for oiling, worn, soft, folded with care. You dab a little oil onto it and wipe your ankles, then the inside of your knees, places that rub, places that hurt. The scent is familiar now, comforting. It lingers even after the cloth is folded away. Your cousin enters with a cracked lip and a wince. She doesn't ask. You hand her the jar and she dips her pinky into it, dabbing carefully at the sore spot. That jar has passed between many hands in this house, healing blisters, smoothing bellies stretched by pregnancy, soothing cracked elbows worn by scrubbing. You clean the jar's rim with the edge of your shift and tuck it back near the hearth where the fat won't harden. There's pride in this quiet maintenance, this care of body through season and weather and wear. It's not praised, it's not written about, but it is seen by those who know to look. Later, when the wind picks up and frost coats the outer windows, your skin will stay soft. Not because you were pampered, but because you prepared. Because you knew how to keep the cold out, not just from your cloak, but from your very bones. The cottage grows quieter as the wind whistles harder outside, rattling shutters and sending dry leaves spinning through the yard. You move with ease now, each limb coated in a light sheen of oil that traps warmth close to the skin. Your hands glide over wool and wood alike, and your shift no longer clings uncomfortably to rough patches or cracked elbows. But not everyone takes the time. Later in the afternoon, as you help prepare the stew, a neighbour arrives. Marjorie, from the farmstead up the hill. Her knuckles are red and raw, split open in the corners like parchment pulled too tight. She holds her hands stiffly, trying not to show the pain. She's not one to complain. You sit her near the hearth, pour warm water into a bowl, and add a sprig of marjoram. Not for scent, but for its quiet strength. You offer her the cloth, and begin mixing a thicker paste of your herbal oil and a touch of beeswax from the candles. She hisses as it touches her skin, then exhales slowly. "I haven't had time," she mutters. "The boys, the livestock." You nod. You understand. You always do. The truth is, many women only use oils when their skin starts to break. They wait until the sting forces them to stop, until the flesh cries out and the work has to pause, and still they don't call it pain. They call it the season. As Marjorie flexes her fingers, you think of the women who came before, those who rubbed bear fat onto frozen feet, who chewed bark to make salves, who mashed thyme into oil until it turned dark and fragrant. They didn't write it down. They didn't name it skincare. But they knew what they were doing. You remember a story your grandmother once told, of a woman whose hands were always soft, even in winter. The village whispered that she must be lazy, that she didn't work hard enough. Only later did they learn she made her own oil from almond and thistle, applying it before sunrise each day, even on the coldest mornings. They stopped mocking her after that. Some even asked for the recipe. You rub the last of the oil into your own hands, then brush the cloth along your neck and temples, letting the faint smell of rosemary soothe your senses. There's something deeply reassuring in this act, in choosing to tend to your own body, however roughly, however simply. As night falls, you prepare to settle in. The jar of oil goes back to its place, tucked behind the hearth where it won't freeze. Your cloth is rinsed and laid to dry. Your sleeves are rolled down, your coif tied tightly. Your skin feels protected. It's not glamour. It's not beauty. It's defense. In a world of wind-chapped skin, cracked heels, and hidden pain, these oils are your armour, applied not with vanity, but with care. They remind you that even when the world is loud, you can still tend to yourself in silence. Tomorrow you'll share the oil again, with your cousin, with Marjorie, maybe with someone else whose skin tells a story they haven't spoken aloud. And in this way, You pass down more than recipes or chores. You pass down the secret that clean isn't just about water. Sometimes it's about what you choose to press gently into the skin, and what that touch says about how fiercely you choose to endure. You wake before sunrise to the muffled sound of fabric ripping. A quiet curse follows. It's your cousin again, tugging at a strip of cloth stuck in the basket beneath the bed. She's muttering about a wedding, about needing to look presentable. You sit up slowly, rubbing your eyes. There's only one thing she could be talking about: hair. Not brushing it, not braiding it, removing it. You glance over at her. She's hunched in the corner, sleeves rolled, a small clay pot nestled between her knees. The smell reaches you, sharp and acrid, like resin left too long over the fire. She's heating wax. Well, not wax exactly. A homemade concoction of tree sap and rendered fat, stirred until it thickens and cools into a tacky paste. Hair removal isn't common. Most women don't bother. It's impractical, time-consuming, and often painful. But on rare occasions, weddings, betrothal feasts, holy days, some go to the effort, especially if someone older insists. Your cousin winces as she presses a strip of cloth over her shin, then yanks it off with a snap that echoes in the small room. She bites her lip to keep from crying out. You wince in sympathy. The expectation to be smooth is subtle and inconsistent. No one says it out loud, but you've seen noble women with bare arms and polished brows. You've heard the whispered advice from older sisters. Tidy yourself. It shows you're prepared. Prepared for what, no one says, but everyone understands. The tools for this task are humble and harsh. Cloth, sap, sometimes sugar cooked until it hardens and cracks. If you're lucky, someone's made a resin blend with herbs that dull the sting. If not, you suffer. Some girls use pumice stone, rough and worn, rubbed against the legs and underarms in small agonizing circles. Others swear by a paste made of vinegar and egg whites, which smells terrible and barely works, but gives the illusion of doing something. And then there are the truly unfortunate remedies, half remembered from travelling merchants or gossiped about in washhouses. Mixtures involving quicklime, clay, even urine, if the rumour can be believed. Dangerous things. You stay away from those. Still, curiosity gets the better of you. You join your cousin and inspect her handiwork. Her shin is red but smooth. A few missed spots, a faint bruise where the cloth stuck too tightly. She shrugs. It'll pass. You both sit in silence for a moment. Then you reach for your own strip of cloth, dip it into the warm sap and try your hand. The first rip brings tears to your eyes, but you don't cry out. The sting is immediate, followed by heat. Your skin protests, but the patch is clean. Not perfect, not glowing, but different. You wonder who decided this mattered. You wonder if it truly does. And yet, as you rinse your leg with a cloth soaked in cooled herbal tea, a strange pride settles in your chest. Not because you've conformed, but because you've chosen to participate, to prepare, to endure. In a world where you can't always choose your path, even small acts like this carry meaning. And pain, especially pain. The redness on your leg is still vivid as you wrap it in your shift, the fabric sticking slightly to the tender skin. Your cousin hisses softly beside you, dabbing vinegar onto her ankle. It stings, but it's meant to. That's the price of smoothness, of conformity, of stepping into a hall where others will be watching. The wedding she's preparing for is only 2 days away. The bride's family is wealthy enough to afford honeyed wine, real sugar for the feast, maybe even olive oil for the hair. That means appearances matter, and when appearances matter, hair becomes a problem. Not the hair on your head, that is braided and hidden and celebrated, but the hair on your arms, your legs, your face. You remember once helping an older cousin prepare for her own betrothal. She used a paste made from barley flour and goat's milk, left on her upper lip until it hardened. When she peeled it away, it took the fine hairs with it, and a layer of skin. She couldn't smile for days, but everyone said she looked clean. Not everyone does this. Among peasants, it's rare. Most save these rituals for weddings, births, funerals, moments when a woman's body becomes part of public ceremony. But among the gentry, the expectations are sharper. You've heard that in certain households, young women are told to pluck every stray hair from their brows with fine threaded cloth, that some even rub their skin with wine and salt again and again until it gleams raw. You stare at your shin. The hair is gone, but the pain lingers. It's not unlike the feeling after a long day's work. Sore, numbing, oddly satisfying. You suppose in some way that's what this is. Work, quiet, unpaid and invisible. You reach for the pot again, but this time to help your cousin. She hands you a strip of cloth and exposes her forearm. You press it gently into the resin and smooth it down with the side of your palm. She braces. You pull. She gasps, then laughs. A sharp sound, somewhere between pain and triumph. When you're finished, you both sit in the warmth of the hearth, legs propped up, arms red and glistening with oil. You rub rosemary balm into the sore spots, letting the sting subside. The balm is your own blend, rendered fat, crushed leaves, a touch of beeswax, and it soothes almost everything. Outside, the wind howls, carrying with it the faint scent of damp soil and wood smoke. But here, within this small circle of effort and pain, there is stillness. You look at each other and say nothing. There's nothing that needs to be said. This isn't about impressing men. Not really. It's not even about beauty. It's about control. About taking back a sliver of authority over your body, your appearance, your place. Even if it hurts. Even if no one thanks you for it. The next day, your cousin will walk into the wedding hall, veil in place, arms smooth, cheeks faintly flushed. No one will ask how many times she winced. No one will see the salve rubbed into her thighs, or the small nick behind her knee. They'll see a woman prepared, presentable, polished, and only you will know what that truly cost. The chamber pot waits in the corner, behind a wooden screen draped with a blanket. It's not elegant, it's not discreet, but it is necessary. Before dawn, you step quietly past your sleeping cousin and tiptoe across the cold floorboards. Your shift brushes your calves as you move, and your fingers fumble for the edge of the blanket. The screen is thin, just enough privacy to keep you from embarrassment. But in a house full of people, privacy is always partial. The pot is made of clay, wide-mouthed and unglazed at the rim. Someone has scrubbed it clean yesterday with vinegar and hot water. You can still smell the sharpness in the air. You crouch, holding your shift away from the floor, careful not to let it trail. It's awkward, but practiced. Every movement has been rehearsed over years, passed down like inherited knowledge. This is the daily ritual no one speaks of. It's not discussed over bread or whispered about in the garden, but it binds every woman, regardless of class or age. How to relieve yourself with dignity in a world without plumbing. In noble houses, you've heard, the pots are porcelain, decorated even, painted with vines and flowers. Some are shaped like animals, birds with open beaks or squat toads with wide mouths. And yet the task remains the same. In colder months, the pot is essential. The thought of stepping barefoot into the frost-covered yard is too much. The outhouse, if your home has one, is at the edge of the property near the compost heap, and by moonlight every tree shadow feels like a lurking thief. Once done, you wipe with a rag. Not disposable, of course. Nothing is thrown away in a poor household. The cloths are washed, boiled, dried, and reused. You've helped scrub them before, hunched over the wash basin, the smell of ammonia heavy in the air. It's no one's favourite chore. You tip the pot carefully, checking the level. It's not full yet. It will be emptied later, usually by the youngest in the house or the one who drew the short stick that morning. The contents will be tossed in the latrine trench or poured behind the garden wall, far from the well, always downwind. Still crouched, you listen. The wind rattles the shutters. Someone in the next room turns over in bed. You pull your shift down and retie the knot at your hip. Another day has begun. There are rules, of course, spoken and unspoken. Never use the pot during meals. Never speak of what you've done, and always clean it if you leave it more than half full. These rules are not written, but every girl learns them early. Not following them means shame. Not dirt, not filth, shame. Even in larger homes, with servants to clean and carry, women keep to the edges. The pot might be hidden under a wooden bench or beneath the bed. You once heard of a bride who refused to use one during her first week in her husband's manor. She nearly froze trying to make it to the courtyard privy at night. By week 2, she'd quietly asked for her own. There's a strange intimacy in this task, not romantic, not beautiful, but grounding. Each morning, you're reminded of the body's rhythm, its unglamorous persistence, its quiet demands. And you rise from it not ashamed, but composed. Because in this world, control over your body's needs is one of the few dignities you can fully claim. The morning moves forward, and soon it's time to empty the chamber pot. The blanket screen is drawn aside, the pot lifted carefully by its handle with both hands. It's heavier than it looks, and warm in a way you try not to think about. You wrap it in a cloth to keep from dripping and step outside into the biting air. You walk behind the cottage, past the hens scratching in the dirt and the old stump used for splitting firewood. At the far edge of the yard is a trench dug into the earth, shallow but long, lined with last season's ashes and the dark soil turned sour with waste. This is where the contents go, poured carefully to avoid splashing, always in the same place, always with your back to the wind. The smell is bearable. You've known worse. In fact, you're proud of how clean the pot stayed this week. No spills, no dried crust at the rim. You set it beside the fence post and scoop a handful of ash from the covered bucket, sprinkling it into the trench. It helps cut the odour, dries out the muck, and keeps the flies from breeding too fast when the seasons turn. This part of the day, though unpleasant, is strangely calming. No one interrupts you, no one gives orders. You're just a girl with a pot doing what must be done. You rinse the pot with a ladle of cold water from the bucket, then scrub the inside with a twist of old cloth soaked in vinegar. You've done it often enough that your hands know what to do without thinking. Scrub, rinse, scrub again, dry with a clean rag, leave upside down on the stone to drain. Some homes have dedicated outhouses, small sheds with wooden benches and a hole cut into the centre. You've used them while travelling, and though they offer more space, they stink worse than the pot. And in winter, the seat is so cold it feels like stone pulled from a river. Most women prefer the pot for its quiet and its familiarity. But in towns, things are different. You remember visiting your uncle's home in the city, rows of tenements stacked high, each family with their own clay pot under the bed. The alley behind the house ran thick with slop. Everyone dumped their waste from the windows, shouting, "Gardy-loo!" before pouring. You held your breath whenever you passed beneath. Even in cities, women try to maintain some grace. You once saw a merchant's wife step daintily over a stream of sewage with her skirts pinched high and a scarf tied over her nose. Her shoes, too fine for the mud, were ruined by noon. Back at the cottage, you return the pot to its corner, clean, dry, and lined with a fresh scrap of linen at the base. You smooth the blanket screen into place and check for stray drops on the floor. Nothing. Another quiet success. No one will mention it. No one will thank you. But they'll notice if it's not done. That's how this work goes, seen only when it's forgotten. And so, you wash your hands with vinegar and sage, rub balm into the cracks of your knuckles, and move on with your day. There's flour to sift, a child to dress, herbs to tie. The needs of the body may be constant, but so is your ability to tend to them, quietly, completely, without shame. By midday, the sun is warm just enough to lift the frost from the window ledge. The cottage breathes again. Floorboards creak, soup bubbles, voices murmur softly. But you, like every other woman here, are tuned into something unspoken. Something the men don't name, but all the women read like scripture. The smell of the room. Not just one smell. Dozens, layered and shifting, smoke, cabbage, damp wool, tired feet, unwashed cloth, yesterday's onions, and beneath it all, the distinct scent of people. In this world, sweat is not offensive. It is expected. You carry firewood, churn butter, scrape pots, and walk miles in wool with only your shift beneath. Of course you sweat. But there are rules. Rules every woman knows. The first rule, if you must smell, let it be clean sweat. Earned sweat. The kind that fades quickly and doesn't cling too long. This is why your morning rinse matters. Why you dab your underarms with vinegar steeped in lavender. Why you rub crushed mint into your shift seams before you hang it to dry. Not to eliminate the smell, but to remind others, and yourself, that you've tried. You've heard tales from the manors of noble women washing only their hands and faces, perfumed heavily to cover the rest. Their sweat is scented with rosewater and clove, layered beneath silks and pearls, but even they aren't immune. You remember helping in the kitchen once when a lady fainted during supper. Her corset had held her so tightly in the heat, her skin flushed purple beneath her lace. They rushed her outside, loosened her bodice, and fanned her back to life. All the perfume in the world couldn't stop the smell of a body starved for air. Here in the village you have no lace to blame, just layers of wool and honest work, so you do what you can. Rosemary tucked into your bodice, soapwort in your washwater, a sprig of mint behind the ear if you're feeling hopeful. You move past the hearth and lift your arms slightly, just a test, not too strong today, a good sign. You rub your palms with a mix of vinegar and salt, then pat them dry on your apron. The second rule, never let the smell of your body enter a sacred space. If you're heading to church, you rinse your feet, scrub behind your ears, and change into the cleanest shift you own. The wooden pews are close, the air thick with candle smoke and old incense. No one wants to be the reason the woman next to you holds her breath. And then there's market day. You've seen girls walk the long road into town carrying a bundle of herbs pressed to their chest, pinched between fingers to be released just as they near the crowd. A little puff of scent, a little shield. Because when the world is full of sweat and closeness, scent becomes language. A way of saying, I respect you, or I am prepared, or sometimes even, I am worthy. And the third rule, unspoken but ironclad, never ever comment on another woman's smell, unless you offer her help, a cloth, a balm, a bit of rosemary water pressed into her hands with no judgment in your eyes, because someday it will be you who needs it. And when that day comes, you'll know exactly what to do. The wind picks up as the sun dips westward, and with it comes the scent of the pig yard, sour and unmistakable, drifting through the window cracks. You tug your shawl tighter and glance at your cousin. She's wiping down the bench where one of the boys sat earlier, nose wrinkled. He's been in the styes again, she mutters. No need to ask who. Odour is part of life here. The smell of others weaves itself into everything. The bedding, the benches, the hems of your skirts. It marks children, husbands, neighbours, even strangers passing through. But for women, smell carries more weight. It's tied to judgment, to status, to virtue. You're expected to manage it, not for luxury, but to preserve harmony. You bend near the hearth and stir the pot of vinegar water you left to warm. Into it you've thrown 2 sprigs of thyme, a pinch of dried lemon balm, and a shard of broken soap if you could spare it. The scent rises gently, masking the heavier smells that cling to the house. You dip a rag into the pot and wipe the doorway, the windowsill, even your hands. Small gestures, but they matter. In the evening, as you pass among your kin, distributing bowls, tucking in little ones, laying out tomorrow's work, your scent will follow you. Faint, herbal, clean enough to be noticed only by its absence of offence. You've learned how to time your scent. After labour, always rinse, never before. That way the herbs mix with heat and effort, not just skin. And when you need to meet someone important, a local reeve, a merchant, or the village priest, you crush lavender between your palms and smooth it over your veil. A whisper of preparation. You remember once standing behind a woman in church whose hair was still damp from a rosemary rinse. It steamed beneath her veil in the warmth of the chapel, releasing such a sharp, comforting scent that everyone near her seemed to breathe more deeply. You never forgot it, not because she was beautiful or wealthy, but because she smelled of someone who had taken the time, someone who had prepared her body like an offering. That's the real purpose behind all of it, isn't it? Not to hide yourself, not to disguise your nature, but to show, quietly, through every layer and gesture, that you are present, that you have risen to meet the day and made yourself ready for the world's closeness. Still, the work never ends. You lift your arms again and sniff, discreetly. The herbal rinse is fading. You make a mental note to refresh it before supper. Just a quick wipe with the thyme cloth behind the ears and across the chest. Maybe a drop of oil on your fingers to touch the hem of your veil. And if the scent isn't strong enough to mask everything, you know better than to panic. No one lives scent-free here. No one expects it. But they do expect care, effort, awareness, and that's what you offer every hour of every day. By the time you lie down that night, wrapped in your shift, the blanket pulled tight to your chin, you know your body still carries the faint trace of vinegar, rosemary and skin. It's not perfume. It's not indulgence. It's simply your way of saying, I've tended to myself. I've done what I could. And that's more than enough. A knock at the door. Not urgent, not slow, just firm. You open it to find a woman in a velvet-trimmed cloak, hair tucked neatly beneath a pristine veil. Her boots are stitched in a pattern you've only ever seen in tapestries. A noble woman, or close to it. She smiles, polite but distant. I'm here to see the child. She means your cousin's newborn. Born 2 nights ago in the back room with no priest, no fanfare, just the cries of women and the clean snap of scissors. You step aside and motion her in. The moment her boots cross the threshold, the room shifts. There is an invisible line that divides her world from yours, and nowhere is that line sharper than in Hygiene. She carries no scent of sweat. No wood smoke clings to her cloak. Instead, she smells faintly of rose and something more expensive, ambergris perhaps, or imported herbs from the south. You've heard of women like this bathing weekly, even daily, with heated stones, perfumed soaps, linen towels dried in the sun. A different world. She doesn't remove her gloves. You offer her a seat and step aside. Her gaze drifts around the cottage, resting on the fire, the hanging herbs, the worn floorboards, before settling on the cloths folded near the baby's bed. You do your washing here? She asks. You nod. She doesn't judge out loud, but you've lived long enough to read the silence. The truth is, the noble clean differently. Not better, always, just more visibly. Their cleanliness is performance. Soap from Castile, oils from Provence, coif pressed and perfumed, servants to scrub their backs, to carry steaming water up stone staircases in brass kettles, a bather's luxury, and yet, for all their polish, they fear illness more deeply than anyone. You've heard stories of noble women scrubbing every silver spoon with vinegar during plague season, burning lavender at their windows, refusing to touch anything that wasn't first boiled. One woman even sent her own child to live in a cottage to avoid contamination, then refused to bring her home. In your world, cleanliness is quieter. It comes in the form of shifting the beds closer to the hearth during fever season, in washing your shift in snow melt and drying it before anyone wakes, in scrubbing cracked heels with a bit of fat and salt because there's no balm to spare. The noblewoman shifts in her seat, uncomfortably aware of the scent of boiled cabbage in the air. You offer her a cloth dipped in rosewater, something you saved from a festival weeks ago. She takes it with a grateful nod. You think of the times you've sat just like her, but in kitchens, by streams, by sick beds, watching, listening, doing what needed doing. Not with gloves, but with bare hands. And though your fingers may be stained with ash and herbs, they've never hesitated. Cleanliness here isn't ceremony, it's survival. You glance at the noblewoman again. Her veil is too tight. Her boots are spotless. And beneath it all you can see it. She's afraid. Of mess. Of illness. Of sweat. Of the honest scent of life. And you? You're not afraid. You've lived in it, worked through it, bathed in the hearth's warmth and the stream's cold. You've rinsed your hands in vinegar and tears, and still, you rise. She doesn't stay long. After a few pleasantries and a tight smile at the newborn bundled in the corner, the noblewoman rises, brushing unseen dust from her cloak. You offer her a sprig of rosemary for the road, a quiet courtesy, but she declines with a gracious wave as though the gesture were too rustic to accept. You watch her leave, boots tapping against the worn stone path that leads back toward her carriage, or her steward, or her house with warmed floors and tubs you could swim in. And for a fleeting moment, you wonder what it would be like to live in that world. But the moment passes. You turn back toward the hearth, where your cousin is shifting beneath a blanket, her hair damp at the temples, her face flushed with the unmistakable sheen of new motherhood. You kneel beside her and press a cool cloth to her brow. She smelled like flowers, your cousin murmurs, eyes barely open. You smile gently. A whole garden. And yet, the truth remains. Behind the noblewoman's lavender rinse and imported rosewater lies the same flesh, the same blood, the same sweat. You know it. You've smelled it under perfume and powder, clinging faintly behind the ears or at the hem of a too-tight corset. The difference between you isn't the body. It's what you do with it. You light the herbal burner again, letting thyme and marjoram curl through the air. Not to impress anyone, not to signal refinement, but to comfort the woman now shivering beneath rough linen and the weight of new life. The smoke carries warmth, familiarity, care. A younger girl enters carrying a bundle of laundry, shifts, undercloths, a wrap stained with blood. She wrinkles her nose. It stinks. You glance at her, not harshly, just long enough for her to blush. Then you nod. Yes, you say, and it needs washing. The girl carries the bundle back outside and you follow shortly after, heading for the stream with a wooden bucket, a rag, and a pot of ash soap. The sun has risen higher now, glinting coldly off the water. You kneel, dip the cloths, and begin to scrub. Blood, milk, sweat. Each mark worked free by hand. A noblewoman might have a laundress, might never see these stains. But here, your hands meet every truth. You learn the story of the body not from books, but from fibres under your fingernails. A shift stained under the arms means a fever. A cloth gone yellow means too many days without rinsing. A faint sour scent. That's hunger. You know them all, and with every soak and scrub you return the fabric not to perfection, but to function, to dignity. That's what cleanliness means here. Not gleaming white, not polished silver, but readiness. Restoring the shift so it may be worn again. Preparing the skin so it may face the next day. Making a body, tired, aching, beautiful in its effort, feel for a moment like something tended. You wring the last cloth dry and hang it on the line. The wind lifts it gently, and for a moment it dances like silk. Not noble silk, but strong, mended, honest linen. And in that there's a kind of grace no perfumed glove could ever match. You're woken in the night by a sound you know too well. A sharp intake of breath, the low moan of pain, the rustling of straw as someone shifts under the weight of it. Childbirth has begun again. Your cousin grips the edge of the bed, her face pale in the flickering firelight. The midwife has been sent for, but you know how this goes. She might arrive in time, or she might not. Until then, the work falls to you and the other women of the house. No men are allowed past the curtain. This is a space claimed and guarded by women, built not of walls but of trust. You set the kettle to boil, your hands moving by instinct. Water, cloth, clean straw, herbal oil for the skin. Your fingers dip into the balm you prepared weeks ago. Marigold and beeswax steeped in rosewater and strained through linen. You rub it between your palms and then along your cousin's lower belly in circles. Her skin is tight, damp with sweat, already straining beneath the pressure of what's coming. Childbirth in this world is not a quiet affair. It is raw and rhythmic, loud and urgent. The body speaks in ways it cannot elsewhere, and with it comes the quiet labour of cleanliness, not to sanitize, not in the modern sense, but to guard against what can happen when blood and pain mix without care. The cloths you use are old but boiled clean. You've dried them by the hearth for days, folded them neatly in a basket lined with sage and wormwood to keep insects at bay. You've seen what happens when linen isn't clean, when infection sets in after the baby comes and the mother's sweat turns cold. That fear lives in every movement you make. Your cousin cries out. Another wave hits. You press your forehead against hers, whispering nothing in particular. Just presence. Just breath. In noble households there are birthing beds carved from oak, padded stools for squatting, and draped canopies infused with myrrh. But here, in this cottage, the bed is a pile of straw and rags, and the only luxury is having more than 2 clean cloths to spare. Still, you prepare it with as much reverence as any silk-draped chamber. You lay out the birthing blanket, rub rosemary along the floorboards, light a stub of beeswax candle to warm the air and calm the nerves. These are the rituals, part sacred, part practical, all necessary. The midwife arrives just as the child crowns. She says little, just nods, checks, guides. Her hands are swift, soaked in wine before touching anything. She carries a small pouch of herbs, a crooked knife, and a reputation that stretches from this village to the next. You watch her closely, learning with your eyes. Every birth teaches something new. When it's over, the cries of a newborn pierce the air sharp and clean. Relief floods the room like sudden sunlight. You help lift the child, wrap it in the cleanest cloth you own, and press it to its mother's chest. Your cousin's body is shaking. Blood pools beneath her, and already you're reaching for the next set of linens, because cleanliness doesn't end with the birth. Now comes the cleansing. The midwife nods once, then steps aside. Her job is not yet done, but the danger is past, for now. Your cousin lies pale and trembling, her arms wrapped around the crying bundle against her chest. Sweat clings to her brow. Her shift is soaked through. Blood seeps beneath her onto the straw, and still she smiles. You fetch the warm water from the hearth, steeped with marigold, sage, and crushed rose petals. Not for fragrance, though the smell is soft and sweet. These herbs are known to soothe torn skin, to calm swelling, to protect against the fevers that steal women days after the pain has ended. You dip a cloth and gently wipe her thighs. The blood is dark and slow now, still coming, but the worst is done. You clean what you can, moving with care, never rushing. The cloth turns red. You rinse it. Again and again. No one speaks. The baby suckles softly, eyes closed. The afterbirth is gone, bundled in another rag and buried behind the cottage, as tradition demands. You'll light a sprig of rosemary over the spot tomorrow, just as your mother once did, and her mother before her. There are no written rules, but the gestures are carved into your bones. You help your cousin out of her shift, now stained beyond saving. You toss it into the basket with the others, one you'll carry to the stream when the sun rises. For now, you help her into a fresh one. Linen, still warm from the hearth, pressed gently over her shoulders and tied at the waist. She sighs as it settles onto her skin, the cool cloth kissing her fevered frame. You check the baby next. A girl, strong, with fists already clenched and a voice like a cracked bell. You clean her too with warm water and soft cloth, careful not to chill her. You rub a bit of goose fat on her heels, her elbows, tiny places where skin splits too easily. She smells of milk and salt and newness. In noble houses, this moment might come with embroidered robes, a silver basin, perhaps even a visiting priest. But here, it's just the women, the herbs, the water, the cloth. And somehow that feels more holy. You line the cradle with extra wool. The fire glows low. The air carries the mingled scent of blood, herbs, and ash. It is not unpleasant. It is the smell of birth, of survival, of a new woman entering the world alongside her daughter. Your cousin dozes off and you cover her with the heavy blanket. The midwife pulls her shawl tighter and begins packing up her pouch. Burned knife, bloodied cloth, the bit of mint she chewed during the labour to keep herself steady. You nod to her. She's strong, you whisper. She is, the midwife replies, voice low. But keep her clean, change the cloths often, burn what you must, and don't let anyone near her who smells of fever. You nod again, you already knew, but hearing it makes it sacred. You clean the floor last, scrubbing where the blood soaked into wood, sprinkling vinegar, hanging the cloths where the smoke will kiss them dry. You do not flinch, because you know that this too is hygiene, not only for the body but for the soul, a way of clearing space, of honouring pain, of making room for life to grow without rot. And when the sun finally rises, it does so on a house made quiet again by the hands of women who knew what to do. The days that follow a birth pass in whispers, no slamming doors, no loud laughter. The fire is kept steady, the shutters drawn tight, and visitors speak in soft voices, if they come at all. Inside the cottage, time slows. The mother and child sleep beneath layers of linen and wool tucked close, hidden from cold and spirits alike. But even as the mother rests, the house around her must be tended, especially the tools she touched, the bedding she bled on, the chair she leaned against during labour. This is where you come in. Your task is not loud, but it is vital. Today, you clean the comb. Not just any comb. This one is her favourite, the bone-handled one passed down from your grandmother. It lies beside the bed now, nestled in a scrap of cloth. Bits of hair cling to its teeth. At first glance, it's just another object. But in this household, a woman's comb is more than a tool. It's a part of her body. You sit by the hearth with a small bowl of rosemary water, warmed but not boiling. You soak the comb, then begin working out the strands, gently, with a wooden pick, careful not to snap the old bone. The rosemary water smells sharp and green. You like it better than vinegar, though both have their place. It's not just dirt you're removing, it's fear, old breath, the closeness to death that hovers after childbirth. In some villages, women bless their combs before and after major rites. Birth, marriage, mourning. It isn't written down, but you've seen your aunt whisper over her comb 3 times before brushing her hair after her sister died. You didn't ask why. You didn't need to. There's something sacred about brushing. Not just the taming of hair, but the act of restoring order to the body. A comb can soothe pain, coax sleep, bring comfort in grief. And after birth, it helps bring a woman back into herself. When the comb is clean, you lay it on the windowsill to dry. Sunlight catches on its polished edge. Later, when your cousin wakes, you'll brush her hair for the first time since the baby came. Not to make her beautiful, though she is, but to remind her she's still here, still whole, still herself. You gather her shift from beside the bed, stained, yes, but still warm from her skin. You handle it with care. In some traditions, the first shift worn after birth is burned. In others, it's rinsed and buried near the herb patch to protect the child. Your family doesn't burn it. You wash it in rosemary, thyme and salt, then dry it facing east. No one questions the method. These things are done because they've always been done. Even the cradle gets special treatment. You dust it with sage and rub the wood with oil pressed from last year's walnuts. The blankets inside are turned, shaken, and folded again. You place a sprig of lavender at the baby's head, not for scent, but for safety. Old belief says it wards off fever and envy. You believe it wards off forgetting, because in the haze that follows birth, women forget things. What day it is, when they last ate, how long they've been lying there. But the body remembers, through scent, through touch, through every linen shifted, every comb cleaned, every herb steeped and stirred. And so, you clean. You rise early the next morning before the smoke curls from neighbouring chimneys, before the roosters begin to scold the sun. There's one more task that cannot wait, laundering the birth linens. You gather the pile carefully, soaked rags, blood-stained shifts, towels that bore the weight of pain. It's not the mess that bothers you. You've seen worse. It's the memory held in the fibres. The smell of iron, milk, and sweat lingers thick in the weave. At the stream's edge you kneel. The water runs fast and clear here just beyond the willow bend. You set your basin beside you, roll up your sleeves, and begin. Not all washing is the same. This is not the gentle rinse of a Sunday chemise. This is labour. You soak the cloths in lye water first. Soap made from ash and fat, boiled until it bites the fingers if you aren't careful. You've boiled it yourself, stirring the pot for hours, watching it turn from cloudy to sharp. A good lye soap doesn't just clean, it strips away blood, odour and spirit. Or so your grandmother says. You scrub each cloth against the washboard, a plank you carved yourself, grooved and worn. You press the cloth hard, not just cleaning but scouring, purging. Some of the rags are too far gone, you'll burn them later. The rest you rinse in the cold stream, then lay over the rocks to dry, weighed down with stones so the wind doesn't carry them off. There's something soothing about the rhythm. Soak, scrub, rinse, lay, press, breathe. You hum a little as you work, just under your breath. A lullaby without words. Behind you, the world stirs. A neighbour walks by, nods, does not speak. She knows what you're washing, everyone does, and no one dares interrupt. The launderer of birth linens holds a strange respect in the village. Not quite feared, not quite pitied, but seen, known, trusted with what others won't touch. You glance at your hands. The water has wrinkled your skin. Ash clings beneath your fingernails. Your knuckles are red from lye, but it feels clean, this ache. Earned. You return to the cottage with the dry cloths draped over your arm. The baby is sleeping, her breath soft against her mother's chest. Your cousin looks stronger today. Her hair brushed, her hands wrapped in warm cloth. She thanks you with her eyes. No words needed. You place the clean linens in the wooden chest at the foot of the bed. They smell of wind, smoke, and time. You press them down, fold by fold. When you close the lid, you feel a strange peace settle over the room. Later, you'll burn the ruined cloths in the hearth. The smoke will rise bitter and blue. You'll say nothing, just watch it curl into the rafters and disappear. Letting go of what was too torn to save. It's in these quiet labours that medieval hygiene lives. Not just in the scrubbing or the herbs, but in the care. The belief that tending the body, especially a woman's body, is a sacred kind of work. You don't call it ritual, but that's what it is. The baby is 2 weeks old when the weather turns. A bitter wind creeps beneath the doorframe, tugging at your ankles like a warning. The hearth is stoked, the cradle is close to the fire, and yet the air carries that unmistakable bite, damp, sharp, and stubborn. It's time to prepare the baby's first bath. Not a full immersion. Oh no, no one in their right mind would dunk a newborn into a tub in this weather. Even in warmer months, babies are bathed with caution, more cloth than water. Too much wetness, too fast, and illness slips in like a thief. But a wipe down, warmed and herbal, that's different. That's necessary. You fetch the basin and place it near the hearth where the coals burn low and steady. You gather dried herbs from the kitchen beam, calendula, chamomile, and a bit of comfrey. Not too much of anything, just enough to scent the water and soften it. You steep the herbs in warm water while testing the temperature with your wrist. Always your wrist, never your fingers. Skin there is thinner, more honest. Then you strip the baby down, slowly. She squeaks once, her toes curling in protest, but her body is warm, her skin a soft pink. You dip a linen cloth into the herbal water and begin. You clean the folds of her neck where milk has crusted. Behind her ears, under her arms, between her fingers. You move gently, talking to her as you go. She stares at you with a puzzled expression, like she's deciding whether to cry or coo. In the end, she does neither. In the corner, your cousin watches. Her legs are still weak, but her eyes are sharp again. She grips a cup of warm milk and pulls the shawl tighter around her shoulders. You always know what to do, she murmurs. You don't answer, you just smile. The bath ends with a dry cloth warmed by the fire. You wrap the baby up tight, head to toe, leaving only her tiny face peeking out. You hold her for a moment longer than necessary, letting her heartbeat settle into yours. Then you place her back in the cradle. You tip the basin out the back door, letting the herb water soak into the earth. Some women toss it at the base of rosemary bushes or near the threshold, believing it wards off evil. You don't do that, but you do notice the steam rising from the ground, like breath from a sleeping creature. You clean the cloth and hang it by the fire. A new baby means more laundry than ever, diaper cloths, feeding rags, shifts stained with milk or worse. Hygiene isn't just about the body, it's about the rhythm of care, the constant tending. Some families use moss as diaper lining, soft, absorbent, easy to find. Others use old scraps of linen. You've heard of wealthier women importing cloth from abroad, bleached and stitched for this very purpose. But here, you use what you have, and you keep it clean. That's what matters. Because in this world, illness travels faster than news, and a baby's cough, left unchecked, can become a funeral in days. Evening falls with a hush, and in that hush, you prepare another round of linens, this time for the mother. The lochia still flows, faint but persistent, a reminder that recovery doesn't end after the midwife leaves. You open the cedar chest and pull out the softest rags, woven flax, worn thin from years of use. They've been washed in ash soap, boiled with thyme, dried in sunlight. You fold them gently. Not all cloth touches a woman in her healing time. She hasn't asked for new pads, but you know the signs. The wince when she stands, the way she shifts in her seat, the quiet pause before she moves as if bracing herself. So you lay the fresh cloths near her bed, within easy reach but not forced. It's your silent offering. You also bring her a basin of warm water infused with marjoram and rose petals. Frivolous, some might say, but rose is more than scent. It's comfort, a whisper of beauty in a time when everything feels raw and torn. She dips her fingers in it, just briefly, and smiles. Feels like summer again, she says, even though frost coats the window pane. You prepare a gentle rinse for her perineum, a small pot of sage and calendula steeped just enough. You show her how to pour it slowly from a cup, how to lean forward over the basin. You look away as she does it, give her privacy. But you stay close, in case she falters. This part of care is never discussed aloud in the open air of the village square. But every woman knows. They've all sat like this, wounded, humbled, healing. No longer bleeding from a wound made by war or work, but from one torn open by life itself. And it must be cleaned, not because it is shameful, but because it is sacred. You empty the basin, scrub it with salt and hot water and dry it by the fire. Hygiene in this world is not sterile. It's not white-tiled and gleaming. It's layered in scent, herbs, ash, iron. It lives in cloth, in firelight, in the hands of women who know how to wait. That night, your cousin sleeps longer than she has in days. The baby stirs but settles again. The cottage creaks with the settling of the hearth. You sit in the corner, wrapping a ball of linen with moss and thread. Tomorrow's diaper, made ready before dawn. As you work, you think of the old wives' tale that says a clean house welcomes a clean recovery. Not just the swept floors and scrubbed bowls, but the care behind them. It's not about appearance, it's about intention. Every cloth folded, every pot boiled, every hand extended, it all speaks. You are safe, you are seen, you are loved. Because long before the age of antiseptics and soap advertisements, women kept each other whole through attention, through tradition, through acts of invisible devotion. And this, too, is hygiene. You wake to the sound of a knock at the door, 3 slow taps followed by silence. Not urgent, not neighbourly either. You know before you rise who it is. The midwife has returned. She enters without waiting to be invited, as is her way. Wrapped in a heavy cloak, mud on her hem, a pouch slung over her shoulder. "Checking in," she says plainly, setting down the pouch beside the hearth. You nod. No fuss, no need, She moves like someone who's seen it all and still chooses to care. Her fingers are stained with roots and soot. Her face lined but steady. She doesn't waste time on chatter. She asks how the bleeding is, how the baby feeds, whether there's fever or chills. You answer each quietly while your cousin dozes in the back room. Then she opens the pouch. Inside, bundles of dried leaves tied with twine, a vial of goose grease, and a lump of something foul-smelling wrapped in waxed cloth. You know better than to ask. She adds water to the kettle and sets it over the flame. "We'll make a steam," she mutters. "Help clear out what lingers." You fetch a wooden bowl and drape a cloth over your cousin's shoulders. The midwife tosses the herbs in, mugwort, yarrow, and a pinch of something yellowed and crumbly, and tells her to sit and breathe. The steam curls into the room, earthy and sharp. Your cousin leans forward, her eyes closing. It's not pleasant, this part. The scent is strong, bitter even, but soon her breathing deepens, her shoulders loosen. Whatever was clinging inside her, it's loosening too. This steam bath isn't written down anywhere. It's not prescribed by learned men. But women have passed it down mouth to ear, hand to hand. You remember your own mother's birth steam, and the way she swore it brought the fever down. Maybe it was the herbs. Maybe it was the heat. Maybe it was the belief. The midwife unwraps a cloth bundle and pulls out a tin of salve, goose grease mixed with lavender and honey. She warms it with her palm and hands it to you. "Rub it in at night," she says. "Belly, breasts, lower back. Wherever she hurts." You nod again. It's strange how much trust sits in a tin of fat and flour, but you've seen it help. Not always, but often enough. You ask about the smell in the cottage. Not foul exactly, but sharp, like milk gone too long or skin left unwashed. She nods. "Normal. It'll pass." She suggests hanging juniper branches near the hearth and rubbing a little rosemary on the bed frame. Not to mask the scent, but to remind the body it is healing. This too is hygiene. Not a war against dirt, but a welcome to recovery. A way to make the air itself part of the healing. The baby stirs, sensing the midwife's presence. She always does. The woman picks her up without asking, holds her close, sniffs her crown. "Good. Still sweet," she says. "Keep her wrapped, but let her lie bare sometimes. Skin needs air." You tuck that away. Another secret added to the long list. When the midwife finishes her steam and salves, she doesn't pack up right away. Instead, she pulls a stool close to the hearth and warms her hands as if waiting for something to rise between you. Not a question, but an understanding. "I've 3 births this week," she says, half to herself. "One girl came early. Tiny thing, but loud. Another took 2 nights. Nearly lost her." You don't interrupt. You just listen, like women have always done when midwives speak. Not because of drama, but because of wisdom buried inside their words like seeds. "She bled too much," the midwife continues. "Didn't tell anyone until it was nearly too late. Stubborn." She spits into the fire, sharp and quiet. They think if they talk about it, it makes it worse, as if silence keeps the bleeding inside. You glance toward your cousin. She's asleep again, her face calmer than it's been in days. The baby is curled beside her, wrapped in a swaddle with only her nose peeking out like a mouse in a burrow. "You've done well," the midwife adds, but her tone isn't praise, it's recognition. She sees the soaked linens you've boiled, the sleepless nights, the subtle changes in scent and colour and sound, the kind of attention that only other women notice. Then she stands, reties her pouch, and nods toward the window. "Keep the herbs dry. Don't let the rosemary touch iron, or it spoils." Another rule without explanation. Another piece of knowledge passed on like a blessing and a dare. She pauses at the door. "If the bleeding stops completely before the 12th day, call me back. If it smells like copper and rot, call me back. If her eyes go glassy, even for a moment." She doesn't finish. She doesn't have to. She leaves before you can say thank you. Just as well, midwives don't collect thanks. They collect memories and warnings. You step outside after her just for a breath. The air is sharp, the ground hard underfoot. In the hedgerow, rosemary sways slightly. You pinch off a sprig and rub it between your fingers, The scent clings, cutting through the cold. Back inside, you do as told. You hang the juniper near the fire. You place rosemary under the bed frame away from the nails. You boil the linens again, just to be sure. And later that night, while the baby nurses and your cousin hums a low tune without words, you mix your own balm, a bit of beeswax, some dried sage, and whatever's left of the lavender. You melt it slowly, stirring with the wooden spoon that's only used for medicine. You pour it into a small pot and cover it with cloth, not because you were told to, because you now know how. It's in this moment, quiet, ordinary, fragrant, that you realise. The real hygiene wasn't just in the cloths or the herbs. It was in the noticing, the timing, the hands that reached out before they were asked. And that, more than anything, is how women survive. You wake before dawn to the sound of footsteps. Not hurried, not panicked, just purposeful. It's your cousin. She's up, truly up. Not just to relieve herself or calm the baby, but walking from the hearth to the bench like a woman who belongs to her own body again. You stay quiet, watching from your mat. She moves slowly, one hand on her lower back, the other adjusting her shift. But she moves. There's a moment of shared stillness between you as the firelight touches her face. No grand declaration, just a breath, a nod, and the tiniest smile. After days of sweat, leaking breasts and bloody cloths, this first walk feels monumental. You slip on your shawl and join her at the bench. The baby sleeps beside the hearth, wrapped in wool and moss, a perfect pudgy bundle of warmth. Your cousin reaches into her lap and pulls out her comb. It's bone, notched and plain, the kind that's passed down rather than bought. She begins to drag it through her tangled hair, wincing as it snags on a knot. You take it gently from her hand. Let me. You part her hair in sections, starting at the nape. Her scalp is tender, still sore where she sweat through the linens. You dip your fingers in warm nettle water and comb slowly. She leans into it, not just for the comfort, but because no one has touched her hair in days. This is where healing happens. Not only in herbs or steams or bleeding bowls, but in the intimacy of care. You work silently, and with each stroke her body straightens a little more. Her head lifts. She laughs softly when you hit a snag. Then she asks you for a favour. I need to be washed. Not a wipe with a cloth or a dab with rose water. A full wash. Head to toe. It's time. You nod. Not out of duty, out of reverence. You heat water on the fire while she strips behind the linen curtain. When it's warm, not scalding, you pour it into a basin lined with birch leaves. Not for cleansing, really. For scent and for softness. You bring her clean cloths and her oldest shift, the one that's been washed 100 times and feels like breath on the skin. You start with her feet, cracked, swollen, but beautiful in their strength. You wash with care, dipping the cloth, wringing it gently, pressing it to skin with slow circles. Ankles, calves, knees. By the time you reach her belly, she's holding her breath. This is the part women never speak of. The first time someone touches the skin that's stretched, tore and emptied. It's loose now, marbled with bruises, but it held life, and it still holds her. You whisper as you clean. Little things. A story about your own mother's fourth birth. The time you dropped a pail on your foot. Anything to distract. Anything to soften the vulnerability. Because this too is hygiene. Not a ritual of purity, but a return to wholeness. She doesn't cry. Not until you reach her arms. That's when her breath catches, and you hear the faintest choke of air, like someone remembering they still have a voice. You say nothing. You just dip the cloth again, wring it out, and move gently across the places she cannot reach. Elbows, wrists, the thin skin beneath her arms where old sweat clings like memory. The water in the basin is turning cloudy. Not from dirt, really. From days of skin that's been hidden, folded, ignored. Now it's seen. It's touched. It's allowed to be something other than tired. You dry her slowly with a soft wool cloth, the kind woven for infants, but used now for her. She sits still, eyes closed, letting herself be tended. This isn't about modesty. It's about surrendering to care, something women are rarely given permission to do. When she's dry, you help her into the old shift. It smells of rosemary and sun. It's loose in the sleeves and forgiving in the belly. She sinks into it like a home. Then, without a word, she takes the cloth from your hand and begins to wash you. You freeze for a second, startled. You don't have to. I want to, she says. Please. You sit. You let her. And it's only then you realise how long it's been since someone cared for you in this way. You've been the watcher, the wiper, the boiler of linens. But your own skin has gone dull. Your own arms ache. She begins at your hands, worn, red-knuckled, calloused from wood and water. She presses the cloth against your palms, cradles them like something precious. And for a moment, you feel like a child again, safe in someone's care. She moves to your face. The cloth is warm, damp, fragrant with nettle. She wipes away the ash on your cheek, the salt near your brow, the crumbs from breakfast still caught at the corner of your mouth. She laughs. Look at us, she says, a fine pair. And for the first time since the birth, you both laugh, full and open, the kind that makes your ribs hurt. Afterward, you dump the water outside, letting it soak into the frozen earth. You fold the cloths, hang them by the fire, sweep the floor one more time even though it doesn't need it. Because that's what hygiene really is in this moment. Not just washing the body, but honouring the mess, the joy, the bleeding and the recovery. Not just the absence of filth, but the presence of love. That night she sleeps in clean linen. You lie beside her, the baby between you, the smell of rosemary on the air. And even though the world outside is still cold and hard and silent, the three of you lie warm and whole and washed. You wake to the sound of the baby snuffling against her mother's chest, rooting for milk with all the persistence of life itself. Your cousin stirs, blinking against the morning light. Her hands are steadier now. Her voice, when she hums softly to hush the little one, carries the low, anchoring tone of someone returning to herself. It's been almost 10 days since the birth, and though neither of you would say she's well in the way a man might declare it, there's something solid underfoot now. Her skin is less pale, the sweat on her neck no longer carries that sharp edge of sickness. She eats, she hums, she asks questions again, and so, on this morning, she does what women have done for generations when their world starts to expand again. She gets out the ledger. It's not a book of numbers, not exactly. More like a bundle of folded parchment and wax tablets, bound with string, smudged at the corners, and wrapped in an old linen cloth. It holds lists of herbs, recipes, supplies, debts owed and paid. But mostly it holds names. The ledger is where the women of the house record what the men forget, who brought extra candles after the last stillbirth, who loaned a pot of thyme oil when the fever came, who came in a secret in the night to pour wine and listen. Your cousin opens it slowly as if afraid the words might slip away. She runs a finger down the names, mouthing them softly. Some are faded, others written over. Some, like the midwife's, appear again and again, each time spelled slightly differently but always known. She adds a new line, your name and a note beside it. Stayed. That's all, but it holds everything. Then she turns to you and asks, do we have enough soap? It's a simple question, but you understand what she really means. She's ready. Ready to move beyond the healing bed, beyond the ritual of washing and wiping. Ready to host. Not a feast. Not yet. But a visit. A circle of women, perhaps 3 or 4, to sit and stitch and share news. The kind of gathering where cloth is mended and secrets are exchanged in equal measure. So you say yes. We'll make some more today. You head out into the yard, shawl pulled tight, hands already itching to begin. The ash from the hearth has been collected all week. You sift it through a worn cloth into a wooden tub. Then you pour rainwater over it slowly, watching it cloud and swirl until it forms a faintly slimy lye. A word that still makes you wrinkle your nose. Back inside, you mix the lye with leftover animal fat. saved scraps from the last slaughter. You stir it carefully in the pot, clockwise only, like your grandmother taught you. The smell is strong, sour, and oddly comforting. Your cousin joins you, kneeling to stoke the fire beneath the soap pot. Her hands are still weak, but determined. Soap, lye, and fat. That's all. But in your world, it's sacred. The pot simmers gently as you both sit nearby, knees touching, silent except for the occasional hiss of bubbling fat. You stir slowly, keeping rhythm, while your cousin leans against the wall with her eyes closed. The scent in the room is thick, half ash, half old marrow, but to you it smells like order, like a return to routine. Soap isn't a luxury in this house, it's a tool of memory, of care, of dignity. You remember when you first learned the process, standing barefoot in the mud behind the house, watching your mother burn through her patience trying to explain the lye water's sting. She let you run your fingers through the cooling mix once, just once, and you burned yourself, of course, a blister the size of a walnut, but you remembered. You always remember the pain tied to cleanliness. Once the mixture thickens, you pour it into the mould, a hollowed wooden trough lined with cloth. It'll sit by the hearth to harden for days, then cut into blocks, wrapped in linen, stored high, away from damp and greedy hands. This soap, though, this batch isn't just for the house, it's for the visitors, for the women who'll come through the door in a day or two, shaking off their boots, brushing flakes of frost from their eyebrows, and offering quiet congratulations in the form of dried mushrooms, thick wool yarn, or a length of flax thread. They'll notice the soap first. Women always do, and they'll ask, not out loud, but in the silent way women do when they glance at your basin and sniff the air and tilt their heads. Are you clean? Is your hearth tended? Has your baby survived? And your cousin will nod, without words. Her hands will carry the answer. Her cheeks will say, "We've washed. We're back." Later that evening you both prepare the house, not just for guests, but for re-entry into the world. You sweep the floor again, even though there's hardly a speck of soot left. You lay out the cloths, boiled and dried and folded just so. Your cousin sets the table, not for eating, but for display. The new soap, a bowl of rosemary water, a jar of honeyed barley. Small things, but each one says, "We are among the living again." You light a single candle, no need for more. The shadows do their work, softening the lines on your faces, muting the cold corners of the room. That night, before sleep, your cousin braids her hair for the first time since the birth. You watch her hands, slow, deliberate, trembling only slightly, as she weaves the strands over and under. Not for beauty, for form, for control, for the quiet dignity of routine. You smile and whisper, "They'll see it." She looks at you. "Good, let them." And then you both sleep, not deeply, not without interruption, but with clean skin, clean linens, and the faintest sense that life, messy, aching, wonderful life, is creeping back through the cracks. You wake before dawn, not to the baby this time, but to stillness. The hearth is dark. The coals have burned low, but the room is warm from yesterday's labour. You sit up slowly, stretch your shoulders, and listen. Just beyond the shutters, frost ticks gently against the window pane. No wind, no barking dogs, just the hush of a village still asleep. You pull on your shawl and rise. Your cousin stirs beside you but doesn't wake. The baby makes a soft, contented noise, fists curled under her chin like she's dreaming of milk. You pause, just for a second, to soak it in. Then quietly you lift the latch and step outside. The cold air bites at your cheeks, but your breath comes smooth. The yard is covered in frost, white lace on the fence, silver dust on the bare branches of the rowan tree. You cross to the woodpile and bring in another log. The morning's first task. Ordinary, essential. Inside, you stack the wood and stoke the coals back to life. The flames catch slowly, licking the sides of the pot where yesterday's soap mould still rests. You breathe in the faint scent of ash and oil. It smells like readiness. Your cousin wakes with the dawn. She moves easily now, without the grimace of torn flesh or fever. She changes the baby with practiced hands, then sets her near the fire in a wicker cradle you both repaired last week with horsehair thread. And then, as the morning takes shape, the knock comes. Not a hard knock, not the kind men use, but the soft, quick rhythm of women. You answer. It's Beatrice from 2 cottages down, carrying a skein of wool and a knowing smile. Behind her, Joan the herb woman with a clay pot of balm, and at the end of the little line, Agnes, who never speaks much but who always brings wine. They step into the house one by one, brushing the frost from their cloaks, their cheeks pink from the cold. No words at first, just glances, nods, the slow unfolding of scarves and the laying down of burdens. You offer tea, but they don't come for tea. They come for the ritual. Joan washes her hands first, using the rosemary basin. She makes a joke about her cracked thumbs, and everyone laughs too hard because the humour isn't in the joke. It's in the release, in the permission to laugh. Beatrice sniffs the soap and raises an eyebrow. This batch smells better than the one after your brother's fall. Fewer chickens died this time, you reply. More laughter. Someone begins stitching. Someone else starts combing wool. And before long, the house hums with the rhythm of women's work. Soft, steady, indispensable. But beneath it all is another rhythm. The one you've been part of your whole life. The passing of knowledge. Not through books or scrolls, but through hands and glances and shared cloth. You look over and see your cousin nodding at you. She's holding the baby, rocking gently, as if the world has finally remembered how to turn. You sit back, letting the chatter wash over you. Beatrice is recounting the tale of a neighbour's broken butter churn, some tragic mix-up involving a goose and a snowdrift. Joan offers her new balm for a woman who's been coughing in the next village over. Agnes is stringing dried berries into a necklace for her niece's naming day. All of it ordinary, all of it sacred. Your cousin slips away briefly, then returns holding a folded cloth. She opens it slowly, revealing the ledger, the same one she added your name to just days ago. No ceremony, no announcement. But one by one, each woman leans in and watches as she turns the pages. They find their names. They find their mothers' names. They see the smudges and thumbprints left by others long gone. Beatrice presses a finger to a line marked from 20 years ago. That was after the flood, she whispers. It isn't nostalgia, it's continuity. Your cousin flips to a clean sheet. Shall we write today? Joan smiles and hands over her balm. Call it marigold for cracked breath. They all laugh again, but this time it's quieter, warmer, a sound that feels like exhaling after a long-held breath. You add your own note. Soap. Batch survived the frost. And Beatrice, after a moment's thought, says, write mine too, just put, arrived in time. When the women leave, they take nothing with them but stories and the faint scent of rosemary on their skin. The house feels fuller, not emptier, as if their presence added something that will linger long after the fire goes cold. You and your cousin clean up in silence. The baby sleeps. Outside, frost still clings to the eaves, but the sky's paler now, touched by sun. And then, unexpectedly, your cousin wraps her arms around you. Thank you, she murmurs. Her voice is steady, but her hands tremble just a little. You nod. There's no need to say what you both already know. That hygiene, this strange cold word men might scoff at, isn't about soap or water or ashes. Not really. It's about returning, about rebuilding the body after it's torn, about making space for others, about washing away what nearly drowned you, and choosing every day to start clean. And so, as the day winds down and the fire glows low, you sit with her one last time. No tasks left to do. Just warmth. Just peace. Just the quiet satisfaction of having endured together. Let yourself rest now. You've journeyed through firelit kitchens and linen-draped birthing beds, through muddy yards and frost-covered windows. You've learned what was never written down, how women's hygiene wasn't just about cleanliness but about strength. how each wash, each scrubbed cloth, each folded ledger page meant something, held something. You saw how routine kept them alive, how washing soothed grief, how braiding hair was an act of defiance, how soap could be both shield and offering. And now the fire has dimmed. The baby sleeps. The night is quiet. You can almost feel the warmth of that small stone cottage, smell the rosemary steeping in the corner basin. The scent of fresh soap still lingers in the air. The fire crackles low. The ledger lies open on the table, waiting for someone, maybe you, to write the next quiet moment. You made it through. So did they. And even now, centuries later, their stories ripple through time, not with trumpets or banners, but with soft cloth, warm water, and the hush of care passed hand to hand. So breathe in, breathe out, let the story settle over you like a woolen blanket. You're safe. You're home.